Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Line. I'm Samuel.
And I'm Charleton.
Taking a deeper dive than normal into the arts of mime acting.
We're taking a deep dive.
Yeah.
You notice how I said that twice?
Because it's deeper.
Well, yeah, but like specifically 2 times because we're doing 2 songs at once today.
Two, everyone special.
Yeah.
Get them while it's hot. I don't know.
Yeah, buy 2, get 1 for the same price as 1.
Free?
What?
Paid for by. No. Today's sponsor is, I don't know.
Today we are sponsored by water.
Yeah.
Stay hydrated. Or, I don't know.
Yeah, stay hydrated.
Yeah.
It's a good message. Like
so anyways.
Today, what do we got for them?
So we got kind of a special episode today. I mean, every episode is special when I'm with you.
Single teardrop.
But anyways, we are going to be doing 2 songs today instead of 1. There are several reasons for it. First of all, this is part of Project Understory. Mm-hmm. So we're doing Condemnation and Crucifixion.
Parts 16 and 17.
Don't even say the parts in case things
I know it's going to change.
Yeah, it might change. Condemnation is the leading up to the Crucifixion. And
Crucifixion.
Is the Crucifixion.
It's actually one of the best C letter names that we have.
Yeah, honestly. And between these 2 songs, there were several things that kind of went into them being kind of a 2-part duology that made them fit kind of together. So first of all, obviously you have the center climax point being the crucifixion, and that is at the end of the first and the beginning of the second song. So there's some things like that. Also, there's kind of a crazy transition of music as well, and it was very deliberate. Shout outs to Alex for helping me with that, because he had some cool ideas for how to make the music work, and I was like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense. So we have this hardcore intense music for the time where he's going up to, and he's at the trial and so on and so forth, and then finally he gets crucified, and then the music becomes calm and peaceful, and it's because it's while all that time going up to that was really intense, this is okay, this is good. We are in a good moment right here. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the vision for these 2 songs. And they're also kind of short, so the fact that we can slam them together is it's about the length. It's about the length of a regular song.
Yeah, exactly.
So
also, fun fact. So this might be kind of a duology, and it was choreographed intentionally together. But if you take all of Life of Jesus, you know how many parts we have?
It's 7.
It's 7.
Of course it is.
Probably a little bit by accident, but still pretty cool.
Well, we're going to say it was on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, with all of the songs that we expanded upon, hence why this one now says part 16, even though it used to be part 14, is the birth of Jesus got expanded to a trilogy. So, and you're like, how did we make that into a trilogy? Just 2 ways. It's coming.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it.
Soon. But yeah, let's get into the song.
Cool, let's do it. All right, so this was choreographed back in 2021, and this was for Mime Camp, of course, and it transitions, it kind of ends at the point where coronation, or it starts at the point where coronation ends. As you'll notice here, we kind of have the judgment of Jesus before Pilate,
but also the split scene where you got Peter on the other side.
Yeah, if you look at Peter there on the opposite side, he appears several times to kind of be conflicted and so forth.
No, for as intense as it is, it's really interesting. We're highlighting that duology,
and here's Judas, by the way.
Well, exactly.
And then, of course, Judas grabs some rope and, wears a necklace.
Yeah, exactly. It's very subtle. But what's cool about that is, when you read the Gospel of Matthew, you kind of have this back and forth between Peter and Judas, and you got that on stage while we're, being, upstage to still holding Jesus. Also, it's really fun that there's not very many songs get to have this many guards or this many just crowd people ready to kill Jesus.
Yep. And then we deliberately layered it here so that way we have kind of several people here, and then we got the
Barabbas.
We got Jesus and Barabbas here, and they're all like, what do we want? And then we got pointing.
That pointing is so fun. I love that.
Yeah, and I especially like all the chaos going on, and then suddenly there's peace for them to point. That was kind of a nice little thing there.
Let's transition to the next song.
And then you'll notice the music suddenly becomes really calm after he has been sentenced, and they start putting the stuff on him for him to be crucified.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we got the split scene as well, where we got the guard holding back the crowds, and then, or on both sides, really, and then Jesus there in the center.
One thing I love that you did with this is, for all these people, to help clarify the characters, is one side is intentionally all the sad people, and the other side is intentionally all the angry people. I love how that helps clarify what's going on. Obviously, in real life, it's more sparse, but visually from the audience, you can see that. Also, this journey that Jesus has to make, I love it.
Yeah, the shout outs to Stephanie. She helped me out with making sure this worked out properly. But like all of the crowds people unfolded into kind of a semicircle. I think that looked way better than what I did. And then you'll also notice the two criminals as well. And then you got Emily there playing Simon the Cyrene, which is kind of an interesting little detail. Not a lot of songs actually put that in there, but it exists in the canon, so
Simon
we're doing it. Yeah. And then, we suddenly transition over to This Blood by Carmen.
Exactly. Yeah. I love one thing that was interesting is that the two thieves don't get crucified per se. They just kind of spin and go onto the cross. But I love how it kind of helps to highlight Jesus in this.
Yeah, that was the main part, to highlight Jesus. And then we also got the gambling over Jesus' garments.
I thought it was genius. I timing wise, I'd almost do it a little bit later just because there's some dead time. I think that's more just timing wise. But I thought it was genius taking off of his purple sash, like that humiliation of the garment being shown in that royalty. And he's like hanging up there just like another thief.
Yep. And then what we'll get into in the later one, you get the Oriental hand.
Yeah, exactly. Nice
for the blood. The song that succeeds this one is actually kind of really interesting because you'll notice, once again, Jesus had his sash taken off. In the next one, he gets something really grand on him.
Yeah,
but you'll have to see that later.
Next week.
Yeah. Go tell it on the mountain, o'er the hills and everywhere.
You're ahead. That's December, man.
I'm just, 11 months ahead.
Yeah. Well, technically, it will be.
Oh, yeah. It'll be like 8 months ahead.
Not 9 months because it'll be March, but because we'll record it probably in December after doing it this year. It won't be until next year's December podcast that we actually show it on the podcast, making it 21 months.
Dang. We are just bending space and time for you.
And I don't even know. This is all bloopers. That's why they have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, okay, anyway.
So that's the songs. Let's get into purpose and message. We'll be quick on this because, again, purpose is to show Jesus and Project Undertale story and all like this.
Project Undertale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll do Project Undertale after this. It's just the story of Undertale.
Oh my gosh, that would be hilarious.
But we'll set it to all of our normal old school.
Yeah, it's like actual AIM songs, but it's the story of Undertale.
Trying to describe. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh man, that'd be really dumb, but
for you,
let's do it.
No, after we're done with this one. So no.
Is that ever happening?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, but same purpose and message in that regard. In general, we have some other songs that do crucifixions. I think this one fills a void where it's very serious, melodramatic music. So I think it is unique in that way. So I do appreciate that purpose there.
Yep. For Condemnation, of course, the purpose, obviously, Project Undertale story, but they're. Like I kind of described before, Condemnation kind of like gets up to the apex of the story, and then Crucifixion meets the apex and kind of tears it down a little bit.
Which next song picks it back up.
And then the next song picks it back up.
No, it had a really fun flow. Like just doing the septology, the 7 songs here, would be a really cool pacing of music. I think just that section we're very proud of.
Yep. I'm excited because there's talk about us actually like doing the septology for like a presentation or something, and I'd like that.
No, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So fill some holes as far as purpose and unique story moments. So I mean, there's a lot of songs that have Pilate and even some that have Simon Cyrene, but the uniqueness of how the Pilate story is done with all the guards, all of the elements, and also let's talk about that like praiseworthy aspects. The taking off of Jesus's sash is genius.
And style points.
And the picking up of that. Oh man, there was 2 parts that I was able to play off of that in my future choreography. One next week, which we'll talk about, where Jesus gets an extra cool, like, glorified body sash or whatever. And also in a previous song in Coming, trying to talk about the kenosis of what does it mean that Jesus emptied himself in the form of taking on a servant, becoming like a human. And so what we did to help demonstrate that is Jesus going behind Mary when she's about to give birth and taking off his sash. So you actually have 2 moments in the project of Jesus humbling himself. And so that connectivity of, like, the audience would have already seen, oh yeah, he became human. Oh, this is what it meant, like, he humbled
really
himself.
Became
It's
human,
like that typology
Yep.
moment of, like, the first one meets the second one in such a really cool, profound way, I think.
Yep. No, I think,
and then followed
so
through
good.
with all of the pictures that'll come next week.
Yep. You have all the culmination of just about everything for all the symbols coming forward kind of culminates into consolation next week.
Because by that point, we'll be an hour and 15 minutes into the project.
Something like that.
Yeah. The payoff on this is going to be epic. And I love the story arc because, classic 3-arc structure. You're going to get, like, the development, the problem, and then we're going to sit on, like, the Old Testament of all the problems that God's people go through, and then you're going to get this payoff, but then you're going to be like, where do we go from here? And this is the transition point.
Like this is kind of like the climax.
Exactly.
Where, like, in the story of Jesus, especially his crucifixion, like, I feel like you could argue maybe Christ, but definitely after Christ.
No, this
is kind
is
of
the climax of the climax, right? Right, because in the Bible, like, it's all leading up to Jesus, and then after Jesus, there's, like, what happens and what we do with that. But even within the story of Jesus, the crucifixion being that pinnacle moment. Hence why so many of the Gospels spend so much thinking time on Passion Week in that crucifixion story.
Right.
You'll notice most of the Gospels, like the chapter where it actually talked about Jesus' crucifixion, dramatically gets longer. Like Matthew jumps like 20 verses longer in that chapter. Mark, who's known for being a short author, jumps to being a long chapter all of a sudden near the end. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah. And I think, like, maybe I'm just biased, but I think we kind of tried to do it justice, and I think we did it all right. So
yeah, no,
yep.
I'll talk about it in critiques. There's some timing things, but overall, love the timing, the flow, the music pace, and those key moments to get everyone invested. Because sometimes we can be like, yeah, Jesus died for your sins, and it's like, whatever, man. But the taking enough time to show it without being like, you're not going Via Dolorosa where we're gonna like beat up Jesus as hard as we can or whatever. But people are going to understand the impact of that moment and the seriousness of this music.
Yep.
So critiques that you might give in hindsight, been a couple of years.
Some of the major critiques are, like, I don't know how I'd say this, but mostly staging issues, which, I mean, I kind of like was I choreographed the general idea of what I wanted and then immediately put it on to people. Like, we didn't have like time to fix some of the issues.
Right.
Like, we did some, but like not a full adequate, like full session long time to be like, okay, well, this doesn't work, so let's move these
right
around.
When
so
you
those are the things that I'd like
right
to fix.
when you choreograph a song mid-session, you end up doing it at a couple of presentations, and you're like, ooh, that didn't land, let's rework that, let's not put that heretical line in the song, and then you work out some of these issues as you go.
That's oddly specific.
It didn't happen at all. So anyway,
so yeah, and like some of those little staging things, like once again, I have to give credit to Stephanie and Katrina for helping me out with like some of the staging on walking Jesus around. My original vision, which once again was like the bones, the outline, had to throw it on there, was basically for Jesus to go, so it'd be house right, and then he would go upstage, and then house left around the crowd, and the crowd would kind of be in the center, and they would be rotating kind of concept. But it just didn't look good because the crowd was in the way of what Jesus was doing. So ultimately, by opening up the crowd and making it more of a semicircle instead of lines and stuff like that, it looked way better.
No,
so
the pathing makes sense.
Yep, pathing ended up working.
No, shout out to Stephanie also for helping be the eyes, since both of us were in that song as we presented. One of my favorite notes that she gave is there was a few people that actually looked sad. You know, as I'm on the crying side during Crucifixion, and there's a couple of us that actually looked sad, and she's like, the rest of y'all look like you've been mildly inconvenienced by this moment, like you can't cross the street or something. Thank you, Stephanie. It was really helpful getting that passion from people.
Classic.
So, other critiques I might give: the timing of the crucifixion. I would probably want the nails to land on that beat as opposed to just before.
I think they were supposed to.
Yeah. And then the throwing of the scarf, I'd almost want Jesus to come up on the cross first, and then a guard to find the sash to gamble over it.
Yeah, so the gambling a little bit later.
Right. That's more just a pacing issue. It's pretty small, but that gives weight to that moment a little bit more.
Yeah, and something that I did want that I think accomplished, but maybe still a little bit too much, is I wanted I wanted you to ruminate on Jesus on the cross there for a moment. So like at the very end, there's a kind of a drawn out scene where, the crowd's angry and sad and Jesus is dead there on the cross. And then that's just, you just see it and you just dwell on it for a moment. Granted, I don't think it needed to be as long. So being able to eat up some of that time and use that for the gambling of the sash, that'll probably work.
Yeah. Well, and he'll still be suffering during that time, and it almost adds to the agony by mockery sake. Still, I think it hits that purpose. I think those were the small timing issues that I have, but it's pretty minor.
Yeah.
Theologically, I think we've hit on some of the things. Appreciate Jesus's humility and demonstration of that work on the cross for us. I think sets in that seriousness of this moment.
Yep, absolutely. I think for the song leading up, Condemnation, I feel like the main theological things that I would wish could be explained further was some of you could say the purpose of certain things. Like the fact that Jesus came up to Pilate was sure, that's important. And the fact that, he got bartered against Barabbas was important, but why? So we have those things that did factually happen. Part of the issue with, or instrumental songs is that they don't give you the purpose of why this happened.
Right. And adding narration would take away a little bit from the music. And so it's a little tricky because you don't just have Pilate, you also have the Sanhedrin, right?
Also Sanhedrin.
And that's another element. I do appreciate theologically the emphasis on Peter and Judas briefly, highlighting both of their rejections, followed later by Peter's restoration, as well as the Jesus and Barabbas moment. That choice that the crowd made was a demonstration of the freedom that Christ gave for us, the one that was actually guilty, the thieves that were actually there should have been crucified, in the contrast of Jesus. So all of that leads well into a gospel message that you might give at this moment.
Yep. And you just pause the song and play Jesus Loves Barabbas and then resume the song.
Right. Just to put a brief 8-minute song into the middle of a 1.5-minute song.
Yep. Makes sense.
I'd almost I don't know if we actually do this, just me thinking on the fly here. I'd almost pause and let everyone freeze. Someone comes up and gives the gospel and then resume the project. It'd be a really interesting, not intermission, everyone's frozen on stage, but then getting to ruminate on the cross a moment longer. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be actually kind of interesting. You're saying right at the end of Crucifixion?
Right. So Crucifixion ends, just where we ended it. Someone says, here's the gospel. Look at what Jesus did. And then now what life after that moment looks like. I don't know.
Yeah, think about it.
I don't think we have it. I have no idea.
Yep.
So then, how clear was it? How difficult was it to teach? And how much style did we put into the song?
I would say clarity. I might separate the two songs.
I think we do both songs separately.
Yeah, so separate the songs. So we got Condemnation.
Mm-hmm.
I think the clarity probably gets a couple points knocked off because it's a little bit chaotic. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a few moments where you can have that one thing is slow, one thing is fast, but then there's a couple moments where they end up overlapping because it's a short song. So yeah, few points off.
Yeah, so a few points off for that. I think having one thing that I think maybe gets points is Peter being completely isolated on stage right is actually really interesting to me because it highlights Peter
yes,
specifically.
Right.
And, there could have been other people, there could have been other things going on, but the fact that it's just him then allows you to say, oh, this is important while this is going on
right.
Stage
oh man,
left.
Jesus is getting condemned, but Peter. And then, so you kind of assume what's happening over here is because while there are significant things about that story, we're highlighting Peter more in that moment.
Yep. And of course, part of the, some things so, some things facts. Part of with Peter is all Peter's doing is he's kind of looking over the wall, from a distance to kind of see things.
Right.
So if you don't look at Peter, you
didn't really miss much.
You didn't miss much.
Yeah.
And, with the stuff going on with Jesus, so it's those kinds of things that I tried to do and tried to make them work, but didn't always.
Ultimately, I'm hoping the project is cool enough that people want to watch the whole thing again. We just watched it live and someone's like, I want to watch that recording back so you can see all of the little nuances and heck, watch the podcast of us talking about the songs.
Yeah.
See all the behind the scenes, Director's cut. We should totally do that after the whole
The director's cut.
We'll just talk live about the song as it plays, all the songs.
No, man. I'd be exhausted after that. Just like, I don't want to talk anymore, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Hour and a half or whatever. So clarity-wise, we gave some points on and off. I give it some more points because of the Barabbas moment, that pointing. Everyone's going to go, oh, they didn't pick Jesus kind of moment.
Yeah.
I feel like overall, I'd still give it a 7. It's pretty clear.
I was going to give it a 7 as well. Like, yeah, there's a lot of points where the thing that we are supposed to focus on, you can focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the message that you're trying to get, I think you get it. There's a lot of little detail things that I think kind of get lost, and there's a lot of chaos and stuff like that going on. Now, granted, that probably was chaotic at the time, but like because we're trying to do mime, we got to make sure things are balanced and
exactly
make sense.
What about for Crucifixion then, clarity-wise?
So for Crucifixion, I honestly would give that one a lot higher points because I worked.
It's Jesus on the cross, man. If you don't know what we're doing up to this point,
yeah, if you don't know what's going on, like just fail.
Wake up.
No. But like Alex and I worked on this for a bit, and we tried to get some ideas going and tried to work a bunch of things in. I think we did okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so the clarity comes a lot from like, okay, so this is the main focus is on Jesus. And all of the other things that happen like directly surrounding Jesus.
Right. There's nothing on the side at this point. He's got center stage, literally.
Yep. So you don't have to look to the subtleties of the sides, unless of course you want to see like half angry.
Well, and people might look at one point, but they're probably not going to be like, oh, that half is angry, that half is sad. They're probably going to be like, oh, those people don't. Like, they're going to see individuals, not the whole.
Yep. And between all that, I feel like we got the focus going. We got the main points. We got the main set pieces. I'll give the clarity like maybe an 8 or 9.
I was going to give it a 9.
Okay. You know what? To the credit of the beautiful and wonderful choreographer, I'll give it a 9.
I just had one of those real life moments where you can look at the camera. No.
It's like
no, 9 reasons. The only reasons I knock it off is just I think the moment where Simon the Cyrene picks up the cross, there's a little bit of I don't know, it feels a little clunky there, followed by Jesus' mother. Maybe that wasn't just established in the song. It obviously would be way established through the whole project. Those two individuals just felt like something more needed to be done and a little stronger. Maybe that's just, I don't know, acting at some point, but ultimately that's the only reason I knock it off a little bit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So then difficulty. You're the one who actually taught this. What do you give it?
For Condemnation was way different than Crucifixion. What do you know?
Oh, go figure.
So for Condemnation, it was really weird because like I haven't talked about this yet. I should talk about this now. The song that we use for Condemnation is the introduction to a boss battle in Undertale.
Nice.
And so like it's like a 16 count or something like that in the actual game. And so it's super short. And so we kind of just like I found a really cool version of it and then also kind of looped it.
Yeah.
And that ended up meeting the requirements that we had. So fun fact about this song, like the music that I used is actually the introduction to a boss battle in Undertale.
Spear of Justice.
It's called the Spear of Justice, which then opens us up to the actual song title, which we will use at a different song, which is called
So dumb. Thanks, Undertale.
Toby Fox had a way with naming things. One of my favorite names for a track in Undertale is the song that might play when you fight Sans.
That might play.
Yeah.
What's the odds?
It doesn't. Because like Megalovania is the one that plays when you fight Sans. And then there's a completely different song, which is pretty good, mind you, called The Song That Might Play When You Fight Sans. It appears nowhere in the game except for the soundtrack.
So dumb.
Toby Fox is a madman. But anyways.
Yeah, but no, good song still. And we'll use that another one in a celebration.
Yeah. So we're talking about like the difficulty. So we have like, I've only presented the song once and I've only taught this song once. And once again, like
came up Mime Camp with lots of
Mime
people.
Camp, bunch of people. I had like a skeleton of like, these are the things I kind of generally want to do.
About 4 to 5 hours to do it all over 4 days.
Yeah. And between all that, I would say that the difficulty mostly came with cues. Granted, like it kind of has like a very simple, like, 4 8-beat structure that allowed people to hit their cues relatively easily. At the same time, though, it's a very repetitive type music. So while I do think the music is kind of good, it was very difficult to get that point across in like, you know, the most succinct way of communicating, hey, this is the time that you do things.
Yeah, no, I remember learning it and feeling like both this and the next song had that problem of repetition and timing. Jesus's walk on the cross is just a long time with a whole lot of nebulous da 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 da, da kind of. So both of them are pretty difficult as far as learning.
Yep. And so I feel like that would be probably my biggest concern with the timing. The things that actually occur in the song, none of them are really that difficult.
Right. I feel like the Judas hanging himself could be a little clearer, a little more distinct as far as the difficulty, you know, showing that. And then the timing, that's the other thing of like Peter denying Jesus. There's a lot of timing issues that could happen, especially because you have multiple things happening all at once. So difficulty, I would still give like, even though it's a short song, I'd probably give it like an 8 for Condemnation.
I think so. I was going to give it like a 7 for Condemnation.
And then for Crucifixion, I was going to, again, not terribly hard as a crowd person. It's, I think, easier in one regard, but so much harder because the timing of Jesus's like path to the crucifixion is just all open-ended. So we practiced a lot, just that walking sequence.
Yeah.
It's easier. I'd probably only stay down to like a 7 for that song though.
Yeah, I'd probably give it like a 7 as well. Purpose for that is like, if you kind of negate the fact that the crowd's people are super easy.
Oh yeah, there's cake.
Yeah, the main focus being put around Jesus and the people who interact with Jesus and then actually getting up on the cross and things like that. None of it is really that crazy. It's just a matter of getting the timing down and getting the technique down, especially because like you're doing it somewhat slow motion, or at least very melodramatic, you could say. A
little bit more tense, yeah.
Yeah. And because of that, like you want to make sure that the emotions are fulfilled in a, you know, good mime way, which should be happening anyways because it's mime, but like, you know, whatever.
Yeah. So then we're on to style.
So for Condemnation, I feel like the style comes a lot from like the things that were put into the story.
Yeah, you have cool moments where individuals get highlighted, right? We've set up their stories through the preceding songs, and then Peter gets a moment, Judas gets a moment, Jesus gets obviously a big moment. But like there's elements of people getting choices, and then the pointing has like a really cool effect with the chaos that's going on with everything. It slows the song down before getting ready for crucifixion. So a lot of cool style for all that.
Yeah, and the choices really are kind of the highlight of this because like you have, it's especially highlighted in Barabbas, where it's like you can, you know, say that Jesus goes free, or you can say that Barabbas goes free. Which one would make sense? Well, of course Jesus would, but guess what? They picked Barabbas. You know, you get the Sanhedrin. It's like, well, you could pick the innocent man, or you can give into what the crowd wants. Well, the crowd wants this. What about Pilate? Like, well, this man's innocent, or you could choose instead to condemn him. Yeah. So they did.
Or Peter and Judas from the audience perspective, like how do we respond in this moment? There's a lot of ability for the audience, I think, to relate to these characters, and I think that is a unique kind of style. Yeah.
And so between all the choices that people make, and it kind of like sets the scene for everybody is just rejecting Jesus in this moment. Like all the intensity, all the emotions are high, all the chaos is going on, and then suddenly Jesus is fully and completely rejected, and it's like, well, this is kind of dumb.
No, especially if you're invested after watching all of Christ, all of this building. I really hope just everyone cries in the audience after watching this building. No, I hope they're invested emotionally into seeing the profound nature of all of this.
Yep.
Now, for that reason, I'm just gonna rate them both 8, 9. That I feel like maybe it's just the length of the first one, but the elements of individuals being highlighted is really cool. And then for the second song, you get to that 1 extra point because of the sash being thrown out. Genius.
The sash being thrown was great.
It being thrown down, like I said, made a difference in 2 other songs as far as how the typology of Jesus fit together in the whole thing. So just all the more so profound.
Yep. No, I'd say for style, I'd give it like an 8. I worked hard on these songs, man, and I'm kind of happy with them.
Solid stuff.
Like there's, you know, technical details and stuff that need sifted out, but like that's what you'd expect.
So you're going 8-8?
I'm going an 8, and I think for Crucifixion, I don't know. I really like Crucifixion. I might go a 9 as well, because like
it's fair. You can do it. I give you permission.
Okay, I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
No, but like with Crucifixion, I feel like the things that are highlighted, like it kind of, first of all, it pulls from a bunch of stories that a lot of other Mime songs don't. It's got, you know, the sash coming off, and
yeah, stay tuned for next week.
It will. Like this, of course, feels like it should be more of a trilogy than a duology, because it fits into the next scene, the next song. Between the three of these, like you got the whole Passion Week and Crucifixion and stuff like that, that all this is supposed to come together as one like cohesive trilogy. And I feel like for that, the setup that it makes for Consolation is really what gives it the best style. And then of course it hooked up as a trilogy. So
exactly.
Yep. I give it a 9.
Nope. Good stuff. As they wrap up the episode, link down below. Go watch the songs. If you want to see next week's song before we get there, it's already on YouTube. So you got links down below for different things that we talked about today.
Mash that like, subscribe.
And as always, I'm Samuel.
And I'm Mash that like, subscribe.
Breaking the line.